I know it's horrendous, but it is pertinent to the story. So I've been waiting a long time for somebody to ask me this question. I shouldn't say a long time. The past probably 4 months, I've been waiting for somebody to ask me this question. And I don't go to a lot of social engagements, at least social engagements where I don't know the majority of the people there. And I remember in the past, and with anybody really, whenever you go to a social engagement, you're meeting somebody for the first time, you're like, hi, my name is Mark Denney, and you can always count on the fact that someone's going to ask you, what do you do? It happens all the time. And I used to tell people, my name's Mark Denney, what do you do? I say, I'm I forgot now. What was it? A marketing consultant for financial institutions. I help financial institutions acquire new customers. And that was my spiel. And there was very rarely ever a follow-up question to that, mainly because I think it's just one of those kind of questions that people just ask without even thinking about a lot of times. And I did the same thing too. And it's just one of those things, you just ask people what they do and they tell you, and that's it. No follow-up questions. You just move on to your other list of questions you might have. And over the past few months, I was like, I can't wait till somebody asks me that now. I'll actually be able to say what I do with some enthusiasm and some real passion behind it. And I was really looking forward to that. So fast forward to a week or so ago, my wife and I were going to a Christmas party. Yep, one of those ugly sweater parties. And as I'm driving there, it dawns on me, I don't know a lot of the people that are going to be at this engagement. And there's a very good chance that somebody's going to ask me what I do. So I started to kind of rehearse it in my head, and I was thinking about what is it going to be like, and really kind of built this moment up in my mind. And I know it sounds kind of stupid, but so we're at this party, and we're eating some food, and we're having some drinks, and we're hanging out. And my wife introduces me to this lady, and I'm thinking to myself, here it is, it's showtime. So I extend my hand. Hi, my name's Mark Denney, and she tells me her name. Nice to meet you. And here's the moment. I knew it was going to happen. And she leans in and she says, so what do you do, Mark? And it was like fireworks in my head, and I just blurted out, I'm a full-time landscape photographer. Nothing. Crickets. Complete silence. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 5 seconds, almost 10 seconds it felt like. So much time has gone by without a peep. I actually catch my wife out of the corner of my eye looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, am I supposed to have additional context around this? Was I supposed to preface it at all? Am I supposed to say something? Is the ball in my court? More time goes by, and then I see her opening her mouth to say something. I'm like, oh, thank God she's going to say something now. And she says, why landscapes? And I thought to myself, wow, why landscapes? What a fantastic follow-up question. Nobody ever really asked a follow-up question when I told them what I used to do. But now the very first person comes up with this banger of a question, why landscapes? So I thought it was fantastic. And I told her about kind of like how I got into it and everything. But once we finished our short conversation, the rest of the night, I could not stop thinking about that. Why landscapes? I thought that was just a fantastic question. And I literally, the entire night, I was my typical, probably awkward self. Right? I think that I'm awkward when I first meet somebody. Once I get to know you, I think I'm normal. I think I'm fine. But when I first meet you, I'm a little shy, I guess. And I was just kind of walking around, being somewhat standoffish, I guess. But I was having this whole conversation in my head about why landscapes. And I just kept thinking to myself and kind of rehashing my whole story of how I really got into it. And I had this whole conversation in my head about how I got into photography and I gravitated straight towards landscapes, but it wasn't like my passion or anything. At that time, I was really just into photography. It was really like street photography and landscape photography. And I did that for a couple years. And then it got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm going to see if I can make some money at this. And I think that's a natural progression after people, or they're into photography for a little while. And once it becomes serious enough, it becomes this, it's not a game, but it's almost like, let's just see if I can get somebody to actually pay me for my work. It's almost like a badge of honor to say that, or I shouldn't say a badge of honor, like a milestone once you actually start to receive money for your photography. So I was like, okay, let's see if I can make some money. And I was like, well, for landscape photography, you can sell prints, but that is really hard to do, especially starting out. So I was like, well, I guess I could just do like portraits. People pay for portraits all the time, and people pay for wedding photography, and people pay for event photography. And I knew I did not want to do wedding photography, and still to this day, I've never shot one wedding. That's way too much pressure. I could not handle that. But what I did is I was a landscape photographer in my mind that marketed themselves as a portrait and event photographer. And I did quite a few portrait sessions, and I wasn't great at it, and I wasn't horrible at it. In my opinion, I was very average at it. And I shot quite a few events, and I enjoyed that. But the thing about the portraits that I really just didn't like is before a portrait shoot, I would get so much anxiety about it and really get nervous, and I would spend so much time researching poses and positions and how do you position someone's shoulders in relation to their chin and their hips, and it was a lot. And once again, I'm not super comfortable with people that I first met and then have to tell them how to move their body and where to look. It was a mess. And I really, it became to a point where I was marketing myself to get portrait gigs. And then when I would get one, I'd be like, oh, great, I got a portrait gig. Like, oh my God, I'm going to have to do a portrait session. And I was like, what are you doing, Mark? Just don't do that. Because I wasn't really doing it for the money. It was just to see if somebody was willing to pay me for my work. But now events, I enjoyed the event side of it all. I actually ended up shooting a lot of yoga events. And I really liked that because I could actually just kind of stand behind the scenes, and my job was just to tell a story of the day, tell a story of the event. I didn't really have to tell anyone what to do. I was just behind the scenes, just capturing photos to tell a story. And I really enjoyed that. And I thought I was fairly good at that. And that was an enjoyable, I should say, gig. But those two things, the portraits and the events, is what really sold me on the idea, like, you know what, Mark, landscapes is what you really, really love to do. Because when I would shoot landscapes, I just had this other feeling that portrait sessions and event gigs just did not give me. And I started to think while I'm at this ugly sweater Christmas party about what it is about landscape photography that I love so much. Why is that my true passion in life, is shooting landscape photography? And it's not so much that I'm just an outdoorsman, because I'm really not. I love the great outdoors, but I've never been an outdoorsman. I've never been a hunter or a fisherman or anything like that. But I do like to be outside. And I really thought about it at this party. And, you know, one of the main things that I find that I get the most enjoyment out of is that landscape photography keeps me uncomfortable. And I'm of the mindset, if you're not putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, you're not going to grow. At least that's what I think about myself. And I'm the type of person that I always want to keep myself comfortable. I don't like to let myself be exposed to possibly failing at something or not succeeding at something. And landscape photography puts me in these very uncomfortable situations, and puts me in situations that I would never in a million years put myself into. If it wasn't for landscape photography, I would never wake up at 1, 2 in the morning, drive 4 or 5 hours to a state I've never been to and climb a mountain I've never been to, park my car on some random road and hike off into the woods completely in the darkness to capture a photo. I would never ever do that if it wasn't for this genre of photography. And it's almost like an adrenaline rush, because I get nervous out there sometimes, and I'm looking over my shoulder to make sure nobody's following me. And I think that it's something that you do have to kind of prepare for, that something could happen to you while you're out there. So I'm not saying that I ever put myself in a dangerous situation, which I don't think I am, but putting myself in uncomfortable situations is something that's really helped me to grow as a person. And after I go to a shoot and I get a couple great images out of it, I remember driving home and I think to myself a lot of times, like, I can't believe you did that, Mark. You put yourself in such an odd situation, an uncomfortable situation, and it really makes me feel like I've grown. And also you get a great image out of it too, and a fantastic story of the entire day. And I can look back at images that I've taken in the last few years, and I remember every single thing leading up to that image. The hike, being worried, being nervous, the image, just everything about the day, and just the storytelling ability of it. I just absolutely love that. And the other thing is that I kept thinking of is that landscape photography really captivates me. Not so much in the way that you might be thinking of, but it holds myself captive. What I mean by that is it stops me from doing a million other things. So I think of myself as like a taskmaster, a busybody. I'm always doing something. I'm not good at chilling or relaxing or anything like that. The only times I can really relax and stop doing a million things is one, going to a movie theater and seeing a movie. That's a great way for me to put my phone down, no access to computers. I can't hop up from the couch in the living room and start doing a bunch of things around the house, which is what happens when I watch a movie at home. So going to a movie or shooting landscape photography. And I absolutely love when I get to a location and I get all set up and I got my composition ready. I'm the only one there. Everything is in place. The high clouds are in the sky, ready to catch the morning light. Everything is ready and there's nothing left for me to do except just wait. There's no little tasks I can get myself into. Just wait and enjoy what's about to happen. And it's not going to last long, but I'm there to capture it when it is there. And it just captivates me for that brief moment in time. It might only be 30 minutes. Sometimes it's an hour that I wait for the sun to come up. But it just keeps me captivated for that moment in time and really helps me to just reflect and slow myself down and really enjoy what I'm doing. And those are really the two things that really resonates with me with landscape photography. Now, granted, there's a million other things like the planning. I love the planning aspect of it. And I guess if there was a third component to this, it would be the planning. Landscape photography really fuels my OCD. And I've had OCD, I've known that I've had OCD for, I don't know, maybe 10 plus years. And I've learned to not fight it and to just try and embrace it and use it for the greater good. And I tell you what, planning a landscape photography shoot in my OCD just really lets me dive into the nitty-gritty details of the entire thing. I plan it all out, and I plan it out for days before the shoots. And I love that, and I really think it enables me to capture great images sometimes. It's just because I've become so prepared, and I pick the actual day with, the day's gonna have the perfect weather situation, perfect weather setup for me to go. And just I shouldn't say over preparing, but the abundance of preparation that I put into my photography, I think fuels my OCD, and I really enjoy it. It really lets me dig into it. So I guess those really are the three reasons of, why landscapes. Now, granted, I didn't go through that long conversation with the woman at the ugly sweater party, but her question really prompted this dialogue in my head. And I had that whole story with myself in my head that night. And it was a fantastic evening. I had a great time talking to myself for 2 hours. But I thought it was a great story. I hope you enjoyed it, because I do get questions from time to time about, how did you get into landscape photography? How did you get your start? So that's really how I kind of gravitated towards that. And still to this day, it is hands down my favorite genre of photography, and it's all I focus on, really. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you have any question, as always, just shoot me a comment below, and I guarantee I will get back in touch with you. And I will see you all next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.